Right now, there is a plant with red stems crawling through the cracks in your driveway that contains more omega-3 fatty acids than salmon. You did not hear that wrong. We are not talking about a comparison per pound of weight, but per leaf. This is the single most nutritious green plant ever analyzed by science, yet it is currently the victim of a global eradication campaign that has lasted for over 70 years. We are talking about Purslane, scientifically known as Portulaca oleracea. Look closely at the absurdity of our modern existence. Every year, society spends over $30 billion on fish oil supplements and synthetic vitamins desperate to protect our hearts and brains. Yet, at the exact same time, we spend another $40 billion on toxic herbicides, specifically engineered to destroy the best natural source of those very nutrients. This is not an accident. This is an economic paradox designed by industry. You cannot sell someone a supplement for $40 if they know they can harvest a superior version from the sidewalk for free. In 2022, a team of researchers at Yale University published findings in the journal Science Advances that rewrote the laws of biology. They discovered that Purslane does something that was previously considered a biological impossibility. It operates two distinct photosynthesis systems known as C4 and CAM inside the exact same cell at the exact same time. To understand how insane this is, imagine a car engine that runs on gasoline to generate speed and electricity to save energy, but it burns both fuels in the same combustion chamber simultaneously without exploding. This unique metabolic engine makes Purslane a survivor of the highest order. It allows the plant to thrive in drought conditions that would kill corn and wheat while still growing faster than almost any weed on Earth. It is a masterpiece of evolution. It is a superfood in the truest sense of the word. So why does the agricultural industry classify it as a public enemy? Why do chemical companies print its picture on bottles of poison with a red slash through it? The answer is not because it is dangerous to you. The answer is that it is dangerous to their profits. This plant threatens the bottom line of the pharmaceutical industry, the fertilizer industry, and the seed monopolies. They want you to believe it is nothing but a useless weed. But history tells a different story. This is the plant that fed civilizations from ancient Greece to the Americas for 4,000 years before we were taught to forget its name. Welcome to Ancestral Garden. Today we are reopening the file on Purslane, the superfood they tried to erase. Let us dig through the ashes of history to find the truth. In 1989, archaeologists excavating a Bronze Age settlement on the island of Santorini made a discovery that silenced the skeptics. Inside ancient clay vessels dating back thousands of years, they found carbonized seeds. These were not accidental contaminants. They were purslane seeds deliberately stored alongside precious barley and lentils. This was a cultivated crop harvested and preserved by people who understood its value, but the timeline goes back even further. In the caves of the Ozark Mountains in North America, researchers discovered purslane seeds dating back over 12,000 years, stored with the earliest domesticated squash and sunflowers. This plant was sustaining humanity before the concept of the modern lawn even existed. In ancient China, medical texts from 2,000 years before Christ listed it as ma qi xian, the horsetooth vegetable, a superior herb for cooling the blood and healing the 5 organs. To the Hopi and Navajo people, it was verdolaga, a staple food eaten raw or cooked like spinach. To the Aboriginal Australians, it was munaroo gathered for tens of thousands of years. From the courts of Europe to the deserts of Australia, this was never a weed. It was a survival strategy. It was the ultimate insurance policy against famine because it grew when everything else died. So how did a plant that was cherished by every major civilization on Earth become a target for destruction? The answer does not lie in the soil, but in the boardroom. The erasure of Purslane began with the invention of a new ideology called the perfect lawn and the chemical industry that needed a war to fight. The American lawn did not exist as a cultural mandate before the 1950s. After World War II, the chemical companies that had ramped up production for the military suddenly faced a crisis of oversupply, and they needed a new battlefield. They found it in the suburbs. The weapon of choice was a chemical called 2,4-D, which was originally developed during the war for biological warfare to destroy enemy crops. In 1947, the Scott's Company began marketing herbicides to homeowners, selling the radical new idea that a perfect yard was a sterile monoculture of green grass. Purslane became the primary casualty of this psychological war because it thrives in the disturbed soil created by new construction. It was the perfect enemy to justify a billion-dollar industry. Today, over 40 million Americans live in communities with bylaws that explicitly prohibit noxious weeds, often listing purslane by name. You can actually be fined for allowing the most nutritious plant on earth to grow on your own property. But the suppression goes deeper than just aesthetics. The modern food system is built on shelf life and patents. Purslane cannot be sold at scale because it wilts quickly after harvest, making it impossible to ship thousands of miles in refrigerated trucks. It bruises easily, and it refuses to look perfect under fluorescent supermarket lights. More importantly, it is a wild plant in the public domain. You cannot patent a purslane seed. You cannot monopolize its genetics. One single plant produces 240,000 seeds that remain viable in the soil for 40 years. This uncontrollable abundance is a nightmare for capitalism. If people realized they could step outside and harvest their daily dose of omega-3s and antioxidants for free, the market for leafy greens worth $12 billion annually would shrink. The market for fish oil supplements worth $4 billion would take a massive hit. The industry calls it a weed because they cannot figure out how to put a barcode on it. They buried it under asphalt and propaganda, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too well without their help. But nature has a way of outsmarting industry, and Purslane has a biological secret weapon that they never saw coming. In 2022, a team of researchers at Yale University published findings that shattered our understanding of plant biology. They discovered that purslane possesses a metabolic engine that should not exist. Most plants on Earth choose a side. They either use C4 photosynthesis like corn to grow fast in the heat, or they use CAM photosynthesis like a cactus to survive without water. Doing both requires conflicting cellular machinery. It was widely believed that these two systems could not operate simultaneously within the same cell. But purslane broke the rules. The Yale team discovered that this humble weed operates both C4 and CAM pathways in the exact same cells at the exact same time. It acts like a hybrid vehicle running on both gasoline and electricity in the same combustion chamber. During the day, it uses the high-speed C4 pathway to synthesize sugar and build biomass rapidly. At night, it switches to the water-saving CAM pathway, opening its pores to capture carbon dioxide when the air is cool. The result is a biological miracle, a plant that thrives in 45-degree heat on just 2 inches of rain per year, while still producing lush, edible leaves. This evolutionary genius is what powers its nutritional profile. Because it is designed to protect its own cells from extreme radiation and drought, it packs every leaf with protective compounds that happen to be vital for human health. Dr. Artemis Simopoulos found that purslane contains up to 400 milligrams of omega-3 fatty acids per 100 grams of fresh weight. That is 15 times more than iceberg lettuce and 5 times more than spinach. Even more shockingly, it contains trace amounts of EPA, an essential fatty acid usually found only in fish and algae. Land plants are not supposed to make EPA. Purslane does. The nutrient density does not stop there. It delivers 7 times more vitamin E than spinach and 6 times more beta-carotene than carrots. It is one of the richest sources of melatonin in the vegetable kingdom, containing 10 to 20 times more than most crops, helping to regulate sleep and immune function. While modern agriculture has spent decades breeding vegetables to be bigger, sweeter, and filled with water, Purslane has spent millions of years breeding itself to be a concentrated pharmacy. It is the most potent multivitamin nature ever created, and it is growing in the cracks of the pavement, waiting for someone brave enough to harvest it. So here is your instruction manual for rebellion. The first step is to retrain your eyes to see the abundance you have been programmed to ignore. Look for the plant, with the thick jade-green paddle-shaped leaves and the smooth reddish stems sprawling flat against the hot ground. Verify that the stems are hairless and that the sap is clear, not milky, to ensure you have found the true Portulaca Oleracea. Once you identify it, do not reach for the spray bottle. Reach for a harvest basket. Stop poisoning the most valuable plant on your property and start eating it. Harvest the young tender tips in the cool of the morning when the malic acid content makes them crisp and tart like a lemon. Use them to replace the flavorless lettuce in your salad that requires gallons of expensive irrigation water to grow. Blend them into smoothies to access that massive dose of omega-3s, or pickle the stems to preserve them for winter. This is not just about saving money on groceries. This is about opting out of a fragile system. We are entering an era of agricultural collapse where traditional crops like wheat and corn are struggling to survive the intensifying heat and drought. But Purslane was designed for this hostile future. It requires no fertilizer, no pesticides, and no irrigation. By cultivating it and eating it, you are declaring your independence from the industrial food chain. You are taking back control of your health from the corporations that profit from your sickness. The suppression has been so complete that most people under the age of 40 have never even heard the word Purslane. They have seen the plant everywhere crawling across parks and gardens, but they have no name for it except that weed. This is the ultimate tragedy because when you erase the name, you erase the knowledge, and when you erase the knowledge, you erase the power. But the power is still here, waiting in the cracks, growing wild and free. The industries that profit from your ignorance cannot survive your knowledge. Every time you harvest this plant instead of poisoning it, you are breaking a cycle of dependency that has lasted for generations. Every time you share this story, you are preserving a lineage of survival that dates back to the pharaohs and the ancients who valued resilience over convenience. They tried to bury this truth under millions of tons of concrete and billions of gallons of chemicals. But they forgot one fundamental rule of nature. Truth, like Purslane, is a seed that never dies. It simply waits in the dark for the right rain to fall. The plant that feeds you without asking for anything is calling out to be remembered. All it asks is that you stop calling it a weed. If this vault opened something for you, subscribe to Ancestral Garden. Every like and every share helps preserve the wisdom they tried to destroy. The next vault opens soon.